Hey guys, I wanted to make a versus video here between the Google Edition Galaxy S4 and my custom Nexus 4. So in terms of what they're actually running, the Galaxy S4 here is running the development build of Android 4.3. You can see this is the Snapdragon version of the Galaxy S4 and everything else is stock. In terms of my Nexus 4, we're running my normal setup. So this is the Paranoid Android Custom ROM and the Matrix kernel version 10. You can see here it's Android 4.2.2 as well. Okay, so I'm going to start this off with an app opening speed test, and I know this isn't the best way to test out the performance, but nonetheless it's still quite interesting. These are the apps I'm going to use in this folder right here, and yeah, I'll make sure there's nothing in the multitasking for both, which you can see there, no recent apps. And let's do this, let's see which one's quicker at opening the apps. So we'll start off with maps. I'll try and hit these as accurately as possible, but always account for there might be some little human error. So here we go. Galaxy S4 was just a tad in front of the Nexus 4 right there. Google Hangouts. Again, Galaxy S4 just a hair in front. You can definitely see that it's so much quicker now without touchwiz, which was really bogging it down. We'll try the phone here. 1, 2, 3, go. Yep, again, the Galaxy S4 is just a hair in front. There's not that much difference between them, but it is a little bit faster on the Galaxy S4. It's pretty obvious considering it has a 1.9 GHz quad-core processor versus the 1.5 in the Nexus. We'll start up the Play Store. Again, just a tad in front, but that one was pretty damn close. YouTube. Oh, pretty much. Oh, just in front on the Galaxy S4, but that was pretty much identical there. Gmail. Galaxy S4 just in front. Google Plus. Again, there seems to be a pattern. The Galaxy S4 is just in front. So lastly, we've got the camera application, and it is set to the front-facing camera on both. So we should see which one actually loads and turns on the camera first. So let's do it. Galaxy S4 milliseconds in front of the Nexus 4, but there really isn't that much difference. So there you have it. The Galaxy S4 using stock Android 4.3 without touchwiz is faster than a custom Nexus 4. So guys, just to wrap that section up, I did say that the Galaxy S4 was quicker than the Nexus 4. I do want to specify this is my custom Nexus 4. You know, there are slightly faster ROMs out there. You could also overclock it, so I just want to specify that that is, you know, you could get a faster Nexus 4. That's all I'm trying to say here. Other than that though guys, these two devices are very, very similar, and don't forget the Galaxy S4 is running a leaked build of Android 4.3 versus 4.2.2 on the Nexus, so maybe that slight difference is in that Android version. We'll have to wait and see when the Nexus gets it, but that 400 MHz per core that the Galaxy S4 has over the Nexus 4 isn't really making too much of a big difference. You can see they're very, very close in terms of app opening, and we'll check out some benchmarks a little bit later. But what I'm really noticing is the Galaxy S4 just seems a little bit sharper when you go to open apps. It just seems to start the app instantly, whereas the Nexus 4 just seems a tad behind. I say a tad, it's literally milliseconds. I don't know if you'll even notice it. You can just see there, the Galaxy S4, it just feels as soon as you press the screen, it's responding. The Nexus 4 just seems to be a little bit behind. But like I said, that could be fixed with an overclock. It could be fixed with a different ROM. I don't know. So take that as you will. In terms of general UI, both of these are great performers. They're buttery smooth, as you'd expect from any device running stock Android. You know, you don't get any lags while going through your home screens. Everything is just, you know, epically smooth. I will say the touch response is a little bit better on the Galaxy S4, but I think that's just down to the screen technology and the way it's made. In terms of input lag, you can see here when I'm pulling this notification shade down, both are pretty much exactly the same. So there really isn't much to tell between these two devices when they're both running stock Android. They're both really good in terms of smoothness and sharpness. What I will say is sometimes I still see those random slowdowns on the Galaxy S4, and I'm not quite sure why. They are a lot less frequent than they were on touchwiz. You know, you'd really kind of find it hard to actually find them. You can just see how epically fast it really is. But sometimes I still do see those slight slowdowns in the animation, which, you know, it could be due to the fact that I am running a development build of Android 4.3, so take that into account. But in terms of general UI, there really isn't much to go between these guys. They're pretty much identical. So moving on to benchmarks, and you can see I've run the Antutu benchmark, and the Nexus 4 over here scores 21,505, which is a very good score for the Nexus 4. The Galaxy S4, I'll call it the Google edition because that's what we're really running. scores 26,327, which is a good improvement over what it scored in touchwiz. But I mean, you've seen that benchmarks are kind of just numbers, because in terms of real world performance, these two are so damn close, we're not really seeing that much of a difference. But nonetheless, let's just check it out here. So we'll go to the scores, hit up detailed scores, and here you can see the difference. So we know that Android 4.3 over here does have some really nice graphics improvements, so I can't wait to get those over here to the Nexus 4, because we'll probably see a nice improvement in the GPU, 2D and 3D scores. Nonetheless, you can see here, obviously the Galaxy S4 Google Edition phone does win in terms of the Antutu benchmark, but the Nexus 4 really isn't that far behind. You know, I've seen people score about 22,000 on the Nexus 4 with a different custom ROM and slightly different kernels. Whoops, I pressed the wrong button. But nonetheless, both perform really well in the benchmark, and you can see if we check out the chart where they both stand. This Galaxy S4, by the way, guys, is the octa-core variant, so to take that into account, and that's where they are in terms of their overall performance. But like I said, benchmarks are just numbers, but they both perform pretty well in the Antutu bench. So here we go with the Quadrant standard benchmark, and this is more going to show you just how much Quadrant sucks the big one. There is just not this much difference. The Galaxy S4 scores 12,146, which is a very good score. The Nexus 4, on the other hand, scores 5,503. Now, we've seen in Antutu benchmark and in real-world performance that they are much, much closer than that. I don't know what's going on here. It's the strangest thing, because this is actually running Android 4.3. We'll have to see what this does when it's on Android 4.3, but I just don't understand what's going on with this benchmark. There's a massive difference in the CPU scores, which is just, again, weird, because we didn't see that in the Antutu benchmark. Over here on the Nexus 4, we've got 10,971. On the Galaxy S4, we've got 40,583. You know, that is a ridiculous difference, and once again, it just shows you how much Quadrant sucks and how much you shouldn't listen to Quadrant for a benchmark. So here we go with the last benchmark, and this is 3D Mark. I ran the 720p test on both. Don't forget, both devices have the Adreno 320 GPU, although the Galaxy S4 is slightly overclocked, so remember that. We'll start off with the Nexus 4, graphics test 1 and 2. So graphics test 1, it scores 50.2 FPS, graphics test 2, 50.2, so the same score there. I can tell you that is quite a bit higher than what you normally get on the Nexus 4. So the custom ROM and custom kernel are doing a good job, because the averages on the stock Nexus 4 are 47.9 and 46.1. So better GPU performance on my Nexus than what you normally get. Checking out the Google Edition Samsung Galaxy S4, we've got graphics test 1, 54.3, and graphics test 2, 51.1. So once again, the Galaxy S4 is beating out the Nexus 4 in terms of the benchmark. And you can also see it's quite easily beating out the touchwiz Galaxy S4 as well by 4 or 5 frames. So we know that Google introduced some better GPU rendering in Android 4.3, and it seems to be coming through here. On Android 4.3 versus the touchwiz, we are consistently getting higher GPU scores. So in terms of benchmarks, the Google Edition Galaxy S4 is beating out the custom Nexus 4, but that doesn't really matter, considering it was beating out the Nexus 4 even when it was on touchwiz. You know, benchmarks are just numbers. However, in terms of real-world performance, when I first ran this test, I used the Galaxy S4 touchwiz edition, and my custom Nexus 4 was actually faster in opening apps and stuff like that. You can see the Google Edition, it's the other way round. We're seeing better performance on the Google Edition, and it is a hair faster than my Nexus 4 now. So it's kind of switched around. Saying that, they are very, very close. You know, we're not seeing a major difference in terms of UI performance. And yeah, the Nexus 4 definitely still holds its own against the Google Edition Galaxy S4 and the Galaxy S4 as a whole. So yeah, peace out.